Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, an executive overview for small businesses who need assistance available under the CARES Act. My name is Rhonda Williams, Director of Marketing for Employee Benefits at Hub International. Hub International is the world's 5th largest insurance brokerage and a leading provider of business and personal insurance, as well as employee benefits, retirement, and risk services consulting. Before we start the presentation today, I'd like to let you know that this program is being recorded. And after the webinar, you'll receive an email with a link to this recording and a link to today's presentation. We have also made today's presentation available to you now as a downloadable resource. You can find that file on the left side of your screen. Our speaker today is Carrie Cervini, Senior Vice President of Strategic Client Solutions. And she is going to give you some disclaimers and tell you what she's going to present today. Carrie?
Thanks, Rhonda, and welcome to our webinar. I feel like I have to start with, we have to stop meeting like this. For those of you who have been on many webinars that we've been presenting over the last 2 weeks, we appreciate finding the time in the middle of all of the things that are going on to spend some time with Hub. I want to set the stage for what we are doing today, what we can do, and what we cannot do as an insurance brokerage. This is a different webinar than the ones we've been providing in the past. Over the last few weeks, we've been providing webinars on topics where we are the subject matter experts. We have amazing and talented people across the organization available to help on a variety of topics that are really relevant to the issues and the challenges that businesses and employers are facing today. This topic is a little bit different. We are speaking about the financial assistance available to employers today because it is directly connected to various employee relations considerations and even some insurance coverage costs. And so it is within that windshield or that framework that we are going to be speaking today. I want to make sure everyone understands that we are insurance brokers, not financial advisors and not attorneys. I am an attorney advisor providing consulting work and consulting services, but I am not your attorney practicing law, just like all of our compliance officers. The other thing I want to share with you specifically is that at this point, at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, there are no regulations issued around any of the CARES Act. There are no rules. We have understood and heard that the Treasury will be releasing rules today to allow the SBA loans and applications to launch tomorrow. But as you can imagine, without rules and regulations, the loan providers can't underwrite. So we expect the loans to launch tomorrow. That is what we're hearing. But an awful lot of your questions just can't be answered because there's no rules and regs issued. At the time that those rules and regs are issued, those questions that you have around particular topics that I'm going to touch on today will likely be questions to be answered by your financial advisors, tax accountants, or attorneys. Okay, so that is my very big foundation disclaimer for this presentation. Moving on to the foundational considerations for these loans and credits and other kinds of financial assistance. The first thing that I'll talk about today is employee status. What you do with your employees is directly connected to some of the loan and credit availability. We'll talk about some of those very specific movements with employee relations. Then we'll move into the Paycheck Protection Program, which is that SBA loan. There is also an employee retention tax credit program that we'll talk about, along with the emergency paid sick leave and FMLA tax credit program. We're going to talk a little bit about unemployment expansion, and then I'm going to share with you some high quality, trustable, reliable resources, and we'll talk about what you can expect to happen over the next 24 to 72 hours. Somebody said to me the other day, an hour during this period of time is like a year in the normal world, and that's pretty much accurate. All right, so let's start with employee status. When we talk about the various forms of financial assistance available, it's often connected to retaining your employees. So let's talk about what that looks like. Employers have been grappling with some very big decisions. Do I furlough, do I lay off, or do I simply reduce hours? A furlough is an unpaid leave of absence. For those of you that have furloughed your workers, they are still employed by your company. They may not be receiving wages, they may not be working, but they are still your employee. For those of you who have simply reduced hours, that's also going to reduce your payroll dollars, just like a furlough. That may be a consideration when we talk about some of the loan vehicles and credit vehicles available to you. Obviously, reduced hours employees remain W-2 employees. And then for those of you who have been considering or have laid off workers, that is the termination of employment, just like the employee resigning or you firing somebody for bad behavior. Layoffs directly impact eligibility for some of these loan and credit programs, but the good news is you might be able to rehire. So don't stress at this point if you've laid somebody off. It can all be fixed. Okay. Having laid that groundwork, I want to talk about some of the ripple effect, if you will, of the decisions that you make. Wage and hour rules and payroll continuation are two components of furlough considerations and reduced hour considerations. We're going to talk about some of the rules associated with impacting or reducing your payroll overhead. Employee benefit premiums, again, if you furlough a worker versus lay them off, you're going to have a different financial impact or ramification associated with that decision. And then wage replacement benefits are also impacted, things like emergency paid sick leave and emergency family medical leave. So I just want to start with a very simple basic rule when it comes to the employee relationship and wage and hour laws. Many of you, most clients I've dealt with or talked to over the last couple of weeks have been taking very creative and unfortunately aggressive efforts in reducing payroll exposure, right? Right now it's all about sustainability and survivability, and that also often means reducing your two biggest costs, employee benefits and payroll. Remember that when you start looking at payroll and impacting your payroll, there are rules associated with employees based on their status. Exempt employees, you cannot vary their pay based on hours worked. Non-exempt employees, you're going to pay them by the hour. Both have minimum salaries and minimum hourly rates that you must provide. And being in compliance with Fair Labor Standards Act remains an ongoing consideration. So even if you decide to bring folks back to qualify for some of this loan assistance, you still must keep these wage and hour rules in mind as you look at restructuring compensation and restructuring some of the arrangements with your employees. Okay, so let's get into the reason why everybody is here. Let's start with the Payroll Protection Program. This is an SBA loan program. So when people talk about the SBA loan that's recently available through the CARES Act, the Payroll or Paycheck Protection Program is that SBA program. I know that sounds kind of or redundant, but I'm getting a lot of questions. There's a lot of confusion between the Paycheck Protection Program and the SBA. It is one and the same. Now, the Paycheck Protection Program is only one form of SBA loan. It's the only one we're talking about today, but many of you may have already been out on the SBA website and you saw a loan called the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That loan has been around since 2010. It has very different provisions. It does have a cash up front opportunity for you. It may be something that you're interested in. Your financial advisor will be a great resource to help you decide which of these programs is best for your unique needs and your unique business. The Paycheck Protection Program is also an emergency lending vehicle, and it's designed to help businesses with operating expenses really during the worst of this crisis. The purpose of the Paycheck Protection Program, Rhonda, if you could go back, please, sorry, is specifically to help you retain employees. You're going to see a theme through everything we're talking about today. The federal government has built this CARES program specifically to help employers retain their employees and ensure that employees have income coming in so they can pay their bills and survive through this pandemic. It is essentially a partial revenue replacement. It's available to employers with 500 or less employees. Now, I want to pause on that in particular. I'm getting a lot of questions from clients about how do I count employees, how do I manage the head count, and a couple of answers for you. One is that we don't have regs. So even if that was a question we could answer without regulations or rules, nobody can answer that question. But more importantly, how you calculate, what entities you include in the head count, who you include in the head count, what kind of worker you include in the head count, that all they're great questions for your financial advisor, lending institution, or law firm, or CPA accountant. HUB, as an insurance broker, cannot dig into how to qualify for a loan or establish a loan application or complete the loan application. As you can imagine, we're great at insurance, but we're not lenders and financial institutions. The loan is partially forgivable. The first 8 weeks of costs, eligible expenses post-loan origination are available for forgiveness. Payroll, benefits, rent, mortgage, interest, all of those things are considered qualified expenses. We're going to go through that in a minute. The forgiveness requires that you maintain pre-crisis levels of your FTEs. So remember before we were talking about furlough or layoff or reduction in hours and payroll reduction. This loan requires that you're keeping the same FTEs that you had prior to the crisis, and there will be eventually a specific formula and rule for how you calculate that your financial advisor can help you with. If you do not maintain the pre-crisis level of the FTEs, you will face a reduction in the forgiveness amount. So you may not eliminate the forgiveness, but the amount that will be forgiven may be reduced based on your head count. You have until June 30th to rehire anybody who's been laid off. The other thing I want to share with you, and there's not a lot of discussion about this, but there are some limits around some other employment activities. One of those big limits is all recipients of the Paycheck Protection Program must take a neutrality position with respect to union organizing, meaning if a union organizing event occurs at your organization during the term of the loan and for a period of time thereafter, you as the employer must take a neutral position and allow that process to work its way through. There are also limits on offshoring and outsourcing work. So again, your attorneys, tax advisors, or financial institutions and financial advisors can help you better understand what those requirements and limits are, but it is very important that you as a business understand that going into taking these loans. You do not have to show economic harm to qualify. A good faith certification that the current economic conditions related to COVID-19 necessitated your application for the loan, and you'll have to certify that it's to support ongoing business operations and that the funds are specifically going to be used to maintain payroll and other expenses. Okay, next slide. Here are the expenses that are available or considered qualified expenses for which you may use the loan. Payroll, interestingly, also includes sole proprietors and independent contractors. There is an exclusion for wages above $100,000. This also includes severance and group health benefits, so that all-important health insurance plan that you offer to your employees is included in this. Why? Because we're in the middle of a health crisis, and health insurance is absolutely key. Now, for those of you who have furloughed your workers, you may or may not be aware of your carrier extending coverage to non-active at work employees. For those of you that are HUB clients and you are not sure that's the case, please check with your advisor or account manager. For those of you who are not HUB clients, please reach out to your current broker to determine whether or not the health insurance carriers have continued coverage for your furloughed workers. If they have, that expense is eligible under this Payroll Protection Program, and that's so important today, if ever, especially today. Mortgage interest, rent, utility payments, and interest on certain debt. Again, you'll need your advisors to help you identify what interest qualifies. Next program, we're going to talk about the Employee Retention Credit Program. So you're starting to see the theme that I referenced earlier. This aid coming from the federal government is all about keeping your workers working, keeping the money moving, and keeping our economy up and running. The Employee Retention Credit Program operates separately from the Paycheck Protection Program. You cannot choose both. You must choose one or the other. These do not work together. It is a or, one or the other. Okay, I made that point. Eligible employers are able to receive a refundable tax credit. So this is not a loan. This is not an advance. It is a tax credit equal to 50% of qualified wages. The purpose of this is to assist businesses that have been suspended by government order or that have experienced a significant decline in receipts because of the COVID-19 crisis. If your business qualifies, you can be eligible to receive refundable tax credits against your payroll taxes up to 50% of covered wages or $10,000. So the max credit you can receive is $5,000 because the max eligible wages are $10,000. This is a credit program available from March 13th through December 31st of this year. Another tax credit program that is available is a tax credit program bumped up against the emergency paid sick leave and the expanded family and medical leave programs. We have received a huge volume of questions on both of these programs. We have an amazing team dedicated just to leave management who has been engaged in a Herculean effort to support our clients. If you have questions about how emergency sick leave works or how expanded family and medical leave works, you have to talk to our workforce absence management team. They're outstanding, and they're available to help you navigate the whole program. But I'm here to talk about tax credit. So the tax credits for the emergency sick leave and expanded family leave are available for all of the wages paid, plus qualified health plan expenses. So again, you see the federal government creating programs to help keep health insurance intact during this medical crisis. So you as an employer, that is where you're required to pay out the emergency paid sick leave and the emergency family and medical leave wage replacement benefits. You are able to take a full credit for those payments bumped up against your payroll tax credits. The payroll providers are already creating new pay codes and processing the credit each pay period. So you're getting that credit back directly in each pay period in which those qualified wages are paid. Now, for those of you that pay out more than you're able to take through the tax credit program, there will be a process where you can file with the IRS to ask the IRS to mail you a check for the difference that is owed to you. Again, this is for all qualified leave wages paid, health plan expenses, and Medicare tax. Keep in mind, guys, this is just an important thing to think about. I do have a lot of clients who want to be very generous with their employees in this very difficult time and would like to pay wage replacement benefits for workers who may be out of work for a variety of reasons. If you want to be generous, we love that, but the payment of wage replacement income for your employees that doesn't fall under the emergency sick leave or the expanded family medical leave will not be eligible for credit. So if you're seeking the credit, it is only for those wages that are paid as required by both of those programs. For those of you who may not be aware, the new rules for the emergency sick leave and family leave were promulgated yesterday by the Department of Labor. They'll be published in the Federal Register very soon. We've been fielding lots of questions. There are more questions that you guys had that we just couldn't answer without the rules. We are reading them vigorously and quickly and hope to have updated information very soon. Okay, now switching to your workers. A lot of times the clients that call me and are struggling with these decisions have questions about, will my workers be taken care of if I lay them off? Will they be taken care of if I furlough them and can't pay them? And so I want to put your mind at ease that if you're in a situation where you're not able to continue their pay and you're not able to get the loan assistance or the credits or any of these other financial vehicles to help you keep paying your workers, there is also expanded unemployment available to them. There are 3 programs out there. There are 2 in particular that I'm going to speak about today. One is this temporary pandemic unemployment assistance program. Now, this program is designed specifically for those who are not eligible or who have exhausted their unemployment. How awful would it be if you were on unemployment just a few months ago, got your new job, you're super excited, you get laid off, and now you can't get unemployment because you used it all up during your last break in employment. So the federal government has thought about that, thank goodness. And for those who are not eligible or those who have exhausted unemployment, there is help. This includes a flat $600 weekly payment through July 31st, and the program is through December 31st, 2020. Okay. The next program available is called Pandemic Unemployment Compensation. Not confusing whatsoever. The difference here is this is expanded unemployment benefits for those who are currently eligible for unemployment. And this is in addition to the state-made payments. In order to qualify for these programs, guys, your state has to agree to a number of criteria and enter into a formal agreement with the federal government in order to receive the funding for these programs. I have no idea how many states to date have agreed. There is a process involved. This is going to take a little bit of time for the states to complete the agreement process with the federal government. But once we're through that administrative period of transition, these benefits will be available to folks in the state. So if your workers are applying for unemployment, if your state has not entered into agreement with the federal government yet, they should reapply once that process has completed. States must meet certain criteria, including waiting periods. Many times unemployment programs have a waiting period, and the states must waive those waiting periods. Additionally, many states are already following suit, but they're being required to offer unemployment for furloughs and reduction in hours. So these are some of the loosening up that we see of state unemployment. This pandemic unemployment will also be a $600 a week program, and that's entered in through the end of July. All right, so I want to connect all of the dots for you here. As you think about everything I just threw at you, Paycheck Protection Program, think about this. The Paycheck Protection Program does just that. It protects paychecks. It's that SBA loan designed to help you keep your people employed, keep their health insurance in place, and keep them paid. And it will forgive those expenses along with rent and mortgage for 8 weeks. The Employee Retention Credit, again, it's available to you to keep your people employed and to keep their health insurance in place. You get 50% of the wages up to $10,000. It's a credit through your taxes, so your max credit is $5,000. So as you make decisions about layoffs and furloughs, reducing payroll, and paying emergency paid sick leave and emergency FMLA leave, there are credits available to help get you through these times so that you can maybe make the decision to keep paying people and keep them active on your payroll. And of course, included in all of this is the important health insurance, the paid family sick leave, the Paycheck Protection Program, and the emergency and the Employee Retention Credit Program all cover that important health insurance. Okay, I think that's about all that I have to cover for you today. We do have some helpful links for you. These are right from the federal government, so these are great, reliable links. And I want to share with you what happens next. As we understand it, the loans should be available tomorrow. The Treasury has committed to providing rules and regs this afternoon. If that happens, then they can start opening up the loan portals and start processing loans. But those Treasury regs must come first, or the Treasury rules must come first. They were actually slated, all of this was slated to happen a week to 20 days from now. So the federal government is moving with lightning speed to get aid and support to our clients and to all of your businesses. We expect by the end of April that we'll have very specific guidance from the SBA on the loan payment deferral relief and the loan forgiveness provisions. The way everybody's moving, I wouldn't be surprised if that came out a bit sooner. We are so pleased that you took a half hour out of your day to join us today. We are happy to help with anything related to employee relations and your health insurance coverages and the costs associated with those coverages. We do have some partners that we may know, but we trust that you guys have some great advisors out there to support you, just like Hub is here for you as well. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Carrie, so much. And we do hope that you found this information valuable and are better informed on how to support your employees through this pandemic. We do want to let you know that we're hosting a webinar next Tuesday, April 7th at 11 a.m. Central Time. The CARE Act, what plan sponsors need to know. Please visit hubinternational.com and navigate to our events page to register for this webinar. This ends our webinar today. Please stay healthy and safe. Thank you.